Hey everyone, welcome back to the Monday Movie Club. I'm your host, as always, Kieran J.C. Bodkin. Today we are going to be talking about a charming little horror parody called Zombieland. You may know this from a couple of years ago or from the sequel that came out semi-recently. And here to talk with me about it is my good friend, Jesse Wax. Jesse, how are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. I'm having a great time in quarantine, being stuck in a room. It's great.
You just got back from a small trip, right? So you're self-quarantining at this point?
Yes, I am. I just got back from a trip to South Carolina to visit my girlfriend. She's, doing great there. We took a lot of hikes because there's so many trails there that no one's on because it's the middle of nowhere. So that was a great fun time. But now I got my exercise in, and now I'm sitting in a room for 2 weeks.
You got to balance it out. You got to have your exercise days and then your, relaxation weeks.
Exactly. Every couch potato needs a good salad on the side.
Nice. I like that. So, as you probably know, I like to open up these with two questions not regarding the movie at hand, Zombieland. The first question I like to ask all my guests is, what is the first movie you remember seeing in theaters?
So I don't want to immediately make the audience hate me, but my movie that I remember is actually an Adam Sandler movie, Click. Yeah, Click. So this I
That's
I
the
remember.
first movie you remember seeing in theaters.
Yes, weirdly enough. Um, I'm sure there were others, but
When
this
did
is the
that
first
movie
one that
come out?
2009. No, 2007. Yeah, 2007. I want
All
to say.
right, that's pretty late.
I could be wrong about that, but yeah, it is pretty late. I was the reason I remember it so much is because, and this is the really embarrassing thing, just sticking with our comedy theme, my life is a laugh. It's the first movie I cried at.
Oh, I you know I chuckle because I feel like not me personally, but I know quite a few people who have said that they have cried at the movie Click.
Yeah, it's that last scene where he's dying in the street and just like all of a sudden it hits him all of the regret of his entire life is really heartbreaking. Um, and something about it, me sitting there as like a 10-year-old or whatnot, it just broke me. And I don't understand. I was born with an old soul, and I think that's maybe it. I suddenly, I realized at 10 years old, I have so much regret in my life.
What do you have to regret at 10 years old?
I don't know. I didn't get the latest action figure, maybe. Who
I
knows?
mean, I can't really even for other people other than you that have cried at Click, I've never been able to fully judge because before I became the person I am now that cries at most movies that I see, the movies that did get me were strange ones. For me, Dark Knight Rises made me cry when I saw it in theaters.
Okay,
Now, to be
interesting.
fair, I was young and it was a midnight premiere, so I was very tired. However, Michael Caine's performance in that movie is beautiful, and I stand by my decision to cry.
That's true. Michael Caine. Yes, you got it. You got it there.
Yeah.
I'll let
um,
you have that.
the other question I like to ask people is there a movie from your childhood that sort of stands above the rest as leaving an impact on you and or your taste in movies?
So I know you said you don't like to talk about the movie in these two, but that's actually why I chose Zombieland.
Okay.
Because so my one of my oldest friends and I watched Zombieland together when we were, I think it's like the first time I was over at his house, 14 or whatever. We sat down and started watching this movie. Jesse Eisenberg was in it, Woody Harrelson, like great actor, cool. Um, and Emma Stone, great. Like we saw these three people in it and we're like, oh, let's watch this. And it has become basically the essence of our friendship. Um, I I haven't seen Zombieland 2 yet, and neither is he. and it's because we refuse to see the movie unless we're together watching it.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So this movie for me really captures a lot of the things that I love. It doesn't entirely capture, I think, things in the right way. Like, there's some things about it that are bad, or not perfect, but it's still, I think, incredibly charming, and that for me gives it a lot of longevity. Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of covered my normal second question of why Zombieland. So let's just jump straight into it. Do you feel comfortable with giving a quick either like elevator pitch or spoiler-free synopsis of this movie for people at home that might not have seen this movie yet?
Yes. So I would say a good summary would be 4 outcasts have to travel across half the United States together in order to reach the lauded Pacific Playland, which is the theme park. And though they all start off pretty much as loners, or they slowly grow to become a family. And it's an hour and 26 minutes, I think, is the total runtime. And there's not a whole lot of depth in it. Pretty much the synopsis I just gave is exactly how deep it goes. I mean, we're talking about a movie where one of the characters' entire arcs is finding a Twinkie, and it briefly, for a moment, becomes America's Funniest Home Video Zombie Edition, in which a zombie is killed Acme style with a piano. So it's not a really deep movie, but it is incredibly filled with fun and wild, wacky things. That's not too over the top, except for the piano.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the greatest parts of this movie is the aesthetic of it.
Yeah.
Zombie movies are kind of played out nowadays because we went through several different just booms of zombie movies everywhere. And so having a movie that was able to tell a zombie story with a different look and feel, especially in the horror parody genre, because you already have Shaun of the Dead sitting right there.
Yeah, this is sort of, I think it's been compared to, like, this is the American Shaun of the Dead. I think how it's been compared online, and that's very accurate.
Yeah. If Shaun of the Dead has running themes of like that sort of like Arrested Development, or that sort of repressed emotions where you just want to get to the bar and drink your troubles away, this is a movie about a bunch of shoot 'em up Americans who are just trying to get Twinkies and go to parks.
Yeah, I think one of the best scenes in the movie is where they go into this gift shop in the middle of Arizona and just destroy everything.
That was actually a scene that I wanted to bring up. It was like in my notes of like things to talk about, because I think that is my it's tough. Either that's my favorite scene in the movie, or Bill Murray's mansion is my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah, big. And that's the great thing about the movie is if you talk to someone, everyone's going to have a different, I think, favorite scene. This movie really was memeable before memes really were, a big blow up thing. Really quotable. There's so many things in it that, like, I find myself saying subconsciously, like on a daily basis. Like, I'll just think Rule 32, gotta enjoy the little things.
Yeah, and what I think is so great, like sort of going off of the rule aspect of that movie, that sort of is connected to how the aesthetics of this movie are so great. But also what I appreciate is somehow a horror comedy zombie movie managed to create a hero that is doing the smart things that every horror hero should do.
Yep.
Even from such a simple thing as like, put your seatbelt on. Are you kidding me? Are you really going to die in that dumb of a way that you don't put your seatbelt on?
But what's great about the movie is his arc, which, again, none of the characters really are developed except for Jesse Eisenberg and a little bit Emma Stone's.
I think Woody. I guess it's hard to tell with Woody Harrelson because it might just be he's such a good actor that he feels developed. But we get enough of his backstory sprinkled in, where his arc may not be huge, but his character is deep.
Is the Buck reveal is heartbreaking. That got me almost.
Yeah.
When I first watched it, his character is supposed to be a parody of that gun-toting redneck, shoot 'em up, BA guy. I'm not sure how vulgar we're going, but this movie is incredibly
I tend to cut out F-bombs. If anybody hasn't noticed that every now and then when someone's talking, their audio drops, that's because they said the F word. Other than that, I've kept everything else in.
Great. Well, this movie is filled with vulgar language. In fact, I find it incredibly funny watching, if you ever watched it on television, the non-vulgar version where they just randomly put in words because it's so frequent that it's hilarious, the ridiculous fillers they come up with.
I can't. I can't with those movies. Recently, the movie Baby Driver was on FX, I think, or maybe TNT, one of those channels that plays movies like that. And there was a scene where Jamie Foxx's character is talking to Darling, and he, in the movie, like drops the F-bomb like at her. And in the movie, he said like freaking in this edited version. And then John Hamm's character was like, watch your language. And I'm like, it just doesn't work.
Yep. And that's, I think vulgar comedy like really works when it is specifically reacted to more. Like that was really funny when he said that. But to talk about Tallahassee, he's this character who is supposed to be this redneck, bad mother. And he's also the character that cries the most in the entire movie. He has so many moments where he's like, man, this thing got me, or, here's a wallet that me and my son who I assume we're still in spoilers.
Yeah, still spoilers.
Me and my son made, and the zombies ate him. And it goes back to the same flashback where you saw a puppy, getting shampoo on its hair and eating pancakes, which, again, I think going back to the aesthetics of the movie, it really worked. The reason why they were able to trick you was because the movie was ridiculous enough for that to work. And his character was ridiculous enough for that to work.
But then you see it that way and you're like, oh yeah.
Exactly. The movie, as much as it is absolutely wild and filled with ridiculousness, it also touches just a brief moment on the reality of the human experience. One of which is Little Rock's journey, which you don't really see, but her entire arc, I think she's probably the least quote unquote developed of the characters.
Probably. She's really there to be Wichita's sidekick.
Exactly. But her arc really is about the preservation of innocence. That's what at least Wichita's talking about in the car. She recognizes that Pacific Playland being zombie free is ridiculous. It's so dumb. Of course it wouldn't be free. But she just wants her to be a kid for a second. And you get to see that, and you get to see Little Rock slowly growing up as she learns to fire a gun. And that is a tiny thing, but it gives you just the tiniest bit of character development when she successfully does shoot the box and save their lives.
Yep.
It's not great, but it's enough. It's something.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of feelings I have towards that moment where I'm like, come on, they're smarter than this. Like,
oh, yeah.
running into that machine was really. I'm like, there's no way they're smarter than this. They're shown throughout the movie to be
way smarter.
way smarter than Columbus or Tallahassee, like just leagues ahead of them.
Yeah.
So the fact that they get into this machine that's obviously going to end with it slowly lowering down to zombies is very short-sighted. But I was happy that they managed to save themselves for a moment, that they weren't, well, they definitely were for a moment, which I don't like the damsels in distress.
Yeah.
They did have action over themselves to prolong it, and they took care of like a lot of zombies on their own.
Oh yeah. It wasn't like this was, complete damsel in distress, like, oh no, a zombie showed up, save me. This is a massive horde, and the only reason that any of them survive is dumb luck and Tallahassee just being the most ridiculous zombie hunter on the planet, which I struggle. You're right. There's a lot of tropes in the movie that are, I think, difficult.
There's some dated stuff in this movie. I haven't seen the second movie either, but I would be interested to see if taking this concept, this aesthetics, and what I think was intended to be a very kind-hearted, forward-thinking movie, and put it in our time, like a decade later, more than a decade later. I'd be interested to see if they are more able to play with the gender politics of this in a better way.
Yes, because it is very much. I think I talked about this in our little pre chat, but the movie is great at roasting nerd culture a little bit, and even justifying like, not Tallahassee, justifying Columbus's characterization of always following rules, with his showing of his of his introduction actually to the zombie, which, by the way, that scene terrified me. It took me a couple of watches to get through that, to actually watch that scene, because I am very squeamish when it comes to blood. So this movie, the fact that I'm talking so highly about it should really tell you something, considering, we see zombies break bones and drink them.
Oh yeah.
And it's
nasty. Whenever they bite into somebody, I don't know what they're using and what exactly it's supposed to be, but I feel like every bite I see in that movie, there's like a strand of just skin, almost like a strand of gum that's just being stretched out. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like tendons or skin or what, but every time, like, oh.
It's gross. I'm tensing up now just thinking about it. It is really great aesthetically. You're right. And that's, and it's nice to know, when you dig a little deep, not too deep, but a little deep, there is something behind all of that. I think. Yeah,
I mean, it's some of it's very basic stuff, like Columbus's journey is kind of becoming more free and also becoming more of a hero, because one of his main rules is don't be a hero, which that will definitely help you survive the zombie apocalypse, but it would also leave you alone.
Yeah. And that's what he's trying to overcome, is the fact that, he's always been this loner. And all of them really have always been loners.
It makes sense, though, when you think about it. Who would be the group most likely to make it? It's kind of going into, I don't know if you've ever done this with people before, but me and some other friends have always talked about, like, what would we do if a zombie apocalypse came? Like, could we survive it? And we always break it down to the fact that the beginning of a zombie apocalypse is luck. Like, the people to get past the beginning, that's probably the hardest part, and that's the luckiest part. The people that probably have the highest chances of surviving are those that are already isolated in some way.
Yep. Which is very, very timely.
One other episode, I think it was when I was doing Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yep.
Funnily enough, another horror movie, but we made a joke about how, everything could have been avoided if you just stayed home.
Yeah. And that's just resist the hero's call to adventure. You don't need it. No, 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 no. Just go home, man.
Jesse, that's a part of the journey.
Look, since we are
Refusal to
talking about,
call is literally a part of that journey you just referenced. There's a call to adventure
I
and a
know.
refusal. All
Yeah.
right, then you are dragged across the threshold.
No, just resist it again. Just go back.
Jesse, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and allowing me to have a comedic break before we go into next week's movie, which will be Babadook. We're going to see how me, somebody who gets scared when the lights turn off randomly, how I'm going to handle Babadook.
This was a soft intro to that.
Soft intro to
Little
Babadook.
horror.
I've been getting better at horror movies. I have seen, I mean, Get Out and Us were definitely horror films, but also like not super like the jump scary, terrifying things. But I have seen a few horror movies. I saw Midsommar. I saw Hereditary. What's the one with Patrick Wilson? I think his name is.
Oh, I have no idea. Look, I get scared at movies like I Am Legend, Will Smith's version. I saw that as a child. I didn't even see that. I listened to that from the stairs as a child and had nightmares for a week. I am not
Yeah.
the person to turn to about this.
Yeah, I'm not good at horror movies, but I'm trying to get better. So next week we are watching Babadook. Jesse, again, I just want to thank you for coming
My
on
pleasure.
and being a guest. Zombieland is available for free on Hulu for those of you who haven't seen it yet. It's also available for rent on platforms like YouTube, Amazon Prime, and all that stuff. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Also, let us know in the comments below what you thought of Zombieland. Also, let me know what your favorite zombie movie is. Last time we did a parody horror film, I asked you what your favorite parody horror film is. What is your favorite zombie movie? For me, the answer is still Shaun of the Dead for both of those questions.
Now,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you all next week. Bye.
bye.